Welcome back to another episode of Beta to Billions. I'm Adam Beebe, the first co-host, joined today by Gabi, as always, a great friend of mine, Brad Smith, who will let him introduce himself, and then Ethan Garonzik.
There you go.
Oh,
You nailed it,
nice.
Adam.
First time. I'm 2 for 3 on first time pronunciation so far on the show. He was of Vendori, and we'll let him do an intro as well. But Brad, give us your background.
Absolutely. Thanks, Adam. I guess I'm the guy that picked the easy name like a Brad Smith, so Adam didn't have any
Yeah,
a hard time pronouncing
that's
it.
why I chose you for this episode, because I was like, I got one hard name, I need an easy one, I got to get a quick win under my belt.
I love it. Good to see everybody, and thanks for having me on. Yeah, I'll jump in. So I'm Brad Smith. I lead our solution architect team at Zapier, but prior to that, how I know Gabby and Adam was running a previous software company of my own called Sonar Software, as well as Wizards of Oz. So all of us fun RevOps homies go back a pretty far way. But yeah, excited to jump in today
Yes,
and
thank you.
learn.
A
Yeah,
life-changing community for me, and I think a lot of other people. So thank you very much for that, Brad.
Yeah,
yeah.
Sincerely.
if it wasn't for WizOps,
Hey,
I don't think this show would exist. So we can owe whatever eventual monies we may or may not make off of this. Brad gets a non-negligible percentage of that. So watch out, there's like $27 coming your way at some point.
you know what? 27 is better than zero. So we live in a world of ones and zeros, guys.
Perfect. Ethan, you want to give us your background and tell us a brief one-liner on Vendori?
Sure. Great to meet Brad. Thanks for having me on, Adam. So I'm Ethan Garonzik. I'm the founder of Vendory. I'm sure we'll get into the history of Vendory, how it was built. But all to say, I've spent most of my career all working with numbers, but the past decade or so has been largely in enterprise software. And it's been approaching this problem from all different angles. So we've really lived the pain, as has everyone on my team. We've really held and run roles across finance, operations, RevOps, deal desk, pricing, all of which comes together as part of this CPQ discussion. So thrilled to be on, excited for the conversation, and I'll let you guys take it from here.
Love it. Well, for those who may or may not be familiar with Vendori, what is it and how did it come about?
Sure. So we say internally that Vendori was born from frustration. So again, we've all had these roles. Even our engineering team has spent their careers building and deploying CPQ solutions. So in my one sentence answer here, Adam, Vendori is a software platform in the CPQ. That stands for configure, price, quote, space. And we help our customers get their businesses moving at the pace of sales by providing a seamless and intuitive quoting experience without sacrificing all of the downstream complexity that's needed for sales, operators, finance, admins, and all of the related integrations as well.
Makes sense to me. Gabi, Brad, do you know what it does?
I will say I feel like I have a little bit of a cheat code coming from a CPQ background in a way different life. Yes, excited to learn a little bit more about some of the ins and outs and product differentiators. But yeah, in a long story shorter, do I know what it is? I will age myself with this one. But prior to getting a boatload of Salesforce certifications, my first certification was actually Steelbrick. If anybody remembers that
Wow.
old name, yeah. Like I said, I will age myself with
Nerd.
that one. But yeah, it has come a long way in the decade-ish plus that I've been looking at that type of product offering. So yeah, I'm excited to learn about Vendori and how it differentiates.
Yeah, it's a really big up and coming market. I feel like I mean, to Brad's point, we all kind of stuck with what was available for a very long time, and what was available was even 10, 15 years later, still steel brick, right? So I'm really excited to see the new side of CPQ with somebody coming in with a new approach. I will say, I'm not getting it from the name. Could you tell us about the name?
I can. And our core principle is leadership through transparency. So I can come up here and spin some great story about how Vendori was the aggregation of selling in this, but it also had a domain that was available and it aligned with what we were doing. So I was sitting around early on, and that is the frank story about where Vendori came about.
We
This
appreciate that kind of candor here.
So this is the
100%
hard-hitting journalism that we're after here on Beta
Yeah,
Billions.
yeah.
Ethan, you'll appreciate that. I took the opposite route when I started my business. I was like, you know what? There's no way that sonar.com is available, which it absolutely wasn't. Any 5-letter word is just you're never going to find as an open domain. But I remember my business partner and I both said to each other candidly, we're like, you know what? Somebody probably already has this trademark out there somewhere. I hope we get big enough one day that it matters. 4.5, 5 years later, we got a lawsuit right across our desk for trademark infringement. So it matters sometimes, and I'm glad you found one that doesn't, that somebody didn't already own.
Yeah. Well, we'll see how it goes. But again, that one was probably the easiest decision we've had to make as a business.
Today we learned that Sonar was the Brad Smith of company names.
Yeah.
There you go. Perfect tie-in.
There's at least a few already. Okay, so I think we all know what Vendori does, at least at a high level. Do we think that there is still a problem to be solved in the CPQ space? I will say yes.
I'll say yes.
Yeah, definitely.
Great. So you've
We're
got product
probably a
market
little
fit.
different, Adam, than some of the other episodes you have done and will continue to do, in that CPQ, it's an established space. So there's an element of what we do that is very utilitarian. People need quotes. And I've sort of joked with our sales and marketing team here, you or I will never meet someone at a bar, explain what we do, and have them say, oh my God, I need that. The people who need it, they know they need it. Typically, even the phrase CPQ usually triggers somebody on the call to go diving out the window. So most of the folks in our universe, they have experience with it. They usually have been burned in the past. And so it's been really exciting for us to bring some of these new approaches and see some of that relief even on a demo call. So hopefully probably a little easier for me to win the points on what we do, given its established industry, but look forward to showing you how we're doing it differently than the incumbents.
I do think, yeah, we'll get to demo in just a minute. Before we get to Gabby's homework session of reviewing digital presence. What maybe like one or two or three things does Vendori solve uniquely compared to some of the other players in the market?
Sure. Well, I think the first one, this again depends on who you ask. So everybody has a different perspective on CPQ depending on their role. It's an interesting product in that it's usually built, designed, and sold to RevOps geeks. These are people who care about the details, the data, the pricing metrics, the subscription management. But 95% of your users and usage is the salesperson. And you know what they don't care about? The downstream data. They want an easy way to make a quote. They want to get it out to the customer quickly, and they want a way to transact that and keep the business moving. So one of the first things you'll notice is just the experience that we provide the sales rep. So it's a completely sort of re-engineered perspective on the historically form-based CPQ element. We talk a lot about control and velocity here. So how do we get quotes out on the velocity side? That's really our sales motion. And then on the control side, how are we building in the policies and the rules in place where the tool can be both flexible enough that you can do those out of the box non-standard scenarios that you need and you don't get forced back into an Excel doc, but you have enough of those in place that you can enforce the commercial policies and provide a little bit more of that guided selling experience that just makes a rep life easier. So that's on the rep side. And then you also see on the admin side, we built it as an entirely no-code platform. So historically, CPQ, they were really complex, long implementations, and they were static. They were fixed in time. So a lot of our frustration coming out of enterprise software, it actually wasn't the software that was at fault. It was the fact that it was coded 20, 25 years ago for an on-premise business. And as the business changed to a subscription flow or subscription to consumption or whatever that motion may be, we always found that the long pole in the tent was CPQ. And it had to do with, again, how it's built, how it's designed. And so we've taken a completely no-code approach. We don't even call them implementations. We call them configurations. So again, from the admin side, the sales user side, and then the data side, we've really done a lot to, frankly, just bring it forward from where it's been for the past 20 or 30 years with the steel bricks.
One thing I am very curious about, Ethan, I'm sure we'll get into this when we start digging deeper in the product, but I'd be remiss not to put my AI hat on right now, as we all tend to have one on, considering we walked through that one-way door over the last, I don't know, 2 years or so. We talk about this a lot at Zapier too, so I'm curious how you think about it. In this whole spectrum of determinism to inference, determinism being very much if this then that, inference being very AI forward and letting our language models infer things. I've always leaned on the side, especially with finance related conversations. Like, I think it's a pretty good thing to operate in determinism land. I don't think you want full inference land all the time in
Yeah.
finance. I think that might be a extremely slippery slope, but I'm curious how you think about that, but also how that overlays or potentially displays in the product. And I say all that in the same breath as like everybody's got AI. It's a big box we've all had to check, myself included, at Zapier and at Sonar before. I'm curious of the depth of that box checking and even how you think about that just in the finance world in general.
We could probably spend the next 45 minutes on this topic. So I'll keep it short for you, Brad, here. So you mentioned a couple things. The first is the word deterministic, which I love. And you'll see when we pull open the app, we obviously have a lot of guardrails and rules and conditions, whether they be pricing rules, discount rules, gross margin rules. So for those of you who read the Wall Street Journal, they did a test, I think it was this week, where they put an AI-enabled vending machine in on the journalist floor. And the idea was they gave that vending machine full control. So it was not deterministic of setting prices, ordering inventory, doing things like that. And I think by the end of the week, they made a video on YouTube as well that's not behind a paywall. By the end of the week, the vending machine had, I think, was ordering cigarettes, giving away everything for free, and somehow had been recruited into like a communist overthrow of the journalists because they were just trying to mess with. So a perfect example there of simply relegating that type of functionality to a conversational or negotiation based approach without some set of deterministic policies that underlie that is a very bad idea. Now, there is opportunity, I think, to deploy LLMs in a layer above the deterministic condition that allows for some more flexibility and what we might call intelligent approvals. But when we think about AI, it's actually more on the data perspective. So CPQ as a product or as a platform is really your ingestion source for all data that's flowing through a company. It's where you're structuring your deals. So whether you're thinking about finance data, revenue recognition, compensation, entitlement metrics, renewals, everything actually starts up here and is captured in the quote. So for us, it becomes, sort of an opportunity to think about how do we manage that structured data in a way that an organization can deploy an agentic approach to using that, as opposed to the way it's done today, where everything is so disparate that it's a real challenge even to get all that information in one place. So kind of multiple responses to that in terms of how we think about deploying it. We are in the middle of implementing it for a lot of the unstructured data, like long contract terms that might be attached to a quote where you might have renewal terms or language typed out. But then from a structured data perspective, we talk a lot about how Vendori is enabling these next generation of companies to prepare for more of an agentic backend and an agentic system. Sorry if that was a little bit roundabout or a little too high level, but
No, that was perfect. Right in line with sort of how I'm thinking about it as well. So I appreciate that.
Gabi, social scores?
Yeah. So your website is pretty clean. I'd like the Capterra and G2 reviews down here at the bottom. It was really easy for me to book a demo. I actually booked a demo for Christmas Day. So just a heads up, you're working this week.
I'll see you on the 25th. Outstanding.
Okay.
Yeah.
So yeah, I like it's so one of the things that is the benefit of being in such a specific space is that I can go to the website and immediately understand what it is that you're offering. I like how clean the website is, and it's got a very like landing page vibe to it. So there's many opportunities I feel like to convert on the website, which is pretty cool. The case studies are always great. Love that there's case studies, and I like the ROI on smart software. LinkedIn also super clean. And while I was doing my LinkedIn homework, I actually used to work with your CTO. So I like often joke that I know everybody and I've worked with everybody, but I actually did work with your CTO. So we actually know each other really well. Yeah. At a company called Encapsulate.
No kidding. Small world. Yeah.
Yeah, we were on the same projects. He was my engagement manager. So you actually get a bonus point for that.
Outstanding. I could add a negative point. So Will's going to get an extra Christmas present this year.
So yeah, I like it. I like how easy it was to book a demo, and I like how how forthcoming your website is, and it was easy to navigate. And like I said, you're available. I like your availability. I booked with you for Christmas, so I'll see you then.
Well, I'll have to see what's going on with that because I should be.
Oh, okay. All right. Cool.
For you, I'll make an exception. Yeah.
Okay.
No, I
Also-
appreciate that very much. We have some wonderful people on the team who've done a phenomenal job on some of our marketing and presence as well. And you'll see a lot more of that coming up in Q1 as again, we're just coming to market. So just starting to get the word going around and build the buzz. So I appreciate that very much.
Ethan, I would be extremely remiss not to mention that we are in the same city right now, assuming you're at home in Atlanta and we didn't do this together. I also had no clue who the vendor was going to be before jumping on here. I love this kind of blind taste test thing I'm doing. But
It worked.
what part of Atlanta are
finally.
you?
And I didn't get a heads up either. So this is great. Yeah, Brad, we'll have to meet up. Actually, my wife and I, we have a 2-year-old daughter, and we decided to move down to Columbus, Georgia for the year. So we're living out on the farm, but we do get up to Atlanta. So yeah, we'd have to get lunch sometime.
Gotcha. Good deal, man. That's awesome. Well, from one Georgian to another, I'm glad to be on the same team with you.
Sweet. Well, I think it's demo time. Ethan, take it away.
Let's pull it up. We do a little rearranging of screens here, and you guys can let me know when you can see me up. All right, let's see if I can find this.
I think Brad's got an intruder in his house. It's what it sounds like.
Did you hear my
but
dogs?
is
going
that your-
I
crazy?
did, yeah.
Well, sorry about that.
I'm like I'm desperate for one of them to run in the background so I can see that.
Oh, they usually hide back there on their little bed.
His little bed, right? Yeah.
Yeah, don't worry. They'll be in view soon.
Can you all see the Salesforce screen up here?
Yes.
Perfect.
Indeed.
So we're going to come back to this in a bit, but I think one of the core tenets of Vendory, again, getting back to the fact that 90+% of our users and usage is a salesperson. We never expect a salesperson to go to Vendory.com. If they never know they're working in Vendory, that's fine with us. So just as a launching pad, as sales rep is in here, we integrate with all CRMs. We make it completely seamless. We have managed packages. We can get into integrations, I think, later in the conversation. But just off the bat, we put this nice create quote button here for the sales reps, and you will see that it immediately takes them over into the quote. So the first thing you'll notice is that unlike legacy CPQ, which has historically been very form-based, so typically the reps are going through, they're filling out 2 to 3 pages of forms in Salesforce. They hit the refresh or the configure button, they get some error, they don't know what it means. We're moving the reps directly into this digital version of the quote. So this template can be designed and set by an admin. Not only are the components fully movable, so think of it almost like a digital canvas, but every element within these components can be toggled and managed either by an admin or a sales rep as well. So just up front, when you think about configuring your quote, getting the design the way you want it, very intuitive in Vendory. Where we see this add a lot more value is when we'll start looking at line items. And it gives the sales reps the ability to really customize what's ultimately being presented to that end customer. So a perfect example is, as an admin at Vendory, we don't let our sales reps toggle off net amount. We feel like that's a pretty important field to put on a quote. But in the event that our sales reps are selling a product where maybe they're not offering a discount, we don't necessarily want to put a field on there that shows 0% discount. So we allow them to have full flexibility in terms of what they're toggling on and off. As part of our integration to the CRM, we are bidirectionally syncing on a quote-by-quote basis where relevant. So you'll notice here, we pulled in the domestique details. So Adam, I just set this up in Salesforce as an account. And then similarly, I had it pull in context from that opportunity as well. So again, we're constantly pushing back and forth, whether it's data coming out of Vendory or any updates to contacts or CRM-related attributes that are coming into. So number of, again, as you all know, CPQ can get very large. So I'll start by saying what Vendory doesn't do. We don't do manufacturing. We don't do custom configuration. We are not a CAD-based solution. I'm sorry, guys, am I still sharing my Salesforce screen here, or are you seeing Vendory?
Yeah, we are
Yeah.
still looking at the demo op
That's
one.
problem. Let's see if that
There we
kicked
go.
up.
There's
Now
Vendori.
we can see. Yeah,
I'm
now we're in.
sorry. I've been talking while I was clicking around here, and you all were not seeing, so I apologize for that. Gabi, you want me to start from the beginning? You cut it out, or how do you want to do this here? We keep running live.
Just keep running with it. Yeah.
Good. So as I was saying, you are taken directly into this quote template.
Oh my gosh, the drag and drop. Sorry,
It's
I
a
didn't.
digital. Okay, thank you. I was looking at the
Yeah,
faces,
sure.
and everyone was sort of staring as I was.
It's beautiful.
Thank you. Well, that's the first reaction that we love to hear when we open up Vendori.
Now you know that we're on the right screen.
So getting back, exactly. Usually we get a little bit of excitement over this, especially from folks who've lived through CPQ. So again, the sales rep is taken directly into this digital quote template. This is all managed by an admin. So an admin can not only set the quote template in terms of the components and the design. If you don't want to show invoice schedules or customer contacts, you can pull those off. But you also allow the sales reps to choose what they may or may not want to show. Again, as I was showing here, the net amount field, not toggleable. We've locked that, but we do allow our sales reps, for example, to show or hide the sales discount field as needed. So again, Adam, this is where we pulled in the domestic details and the customer contacts as well. Everything is pulling into the quote when it's created. As soon as the quote is saved down, it will create a record in Vendori. Any sort of save action or change in status will trigger the data flow going back into the CRM and any other systems as well. So again, this is the first difference that you'll notice. There are no more pages to fill out. You're not entering in partner certification level and customer gold this, and then you hit a button. You're not trying to find products from some outdated product catalog. Everything is done directly in the quote template, so you know what's getting sent out to that end customer. Vendori can handle any type of product. So we can do obviously one-time hardware, subscription, consumption. All of those have various attributes and any pricing model as well. So flat, tiered, bucketed, anything that you can sell, any way you can sell it, we handle it. What I was saying as I pulled this up is what we don't do is custom manufacturing or fabrication. So we're not working with CAD designs. Our foundation is really as the source of truth for a pre-skewed product catalog. Just to give you a sense for some of the different products that we can add in, I could add in a basic SaaS product. So this is a term-based. We'll come back to co-terming and the account information in a second. But again, right off the bat, all of this is prorated term-based. This is our most basic SaaS line item here. And again, you can come in and you can toggle on any of these fields that you may or may not want to show for that customer or for internal purposes. We're constantly doing the math and pushing all of these data points back to the CRM. But again, it's really up to the sales rep in terms of how they want to present this out to the end customer. So the most basic item is just a standard SaaS. It does everything that you would expect here. As you change dates, you'll see we're updating invoice schedules. We're doing all the proration, all of the math. So to me, this is what I'd consider table stakes for a CPQ, which is just, can you make a net new quote with a subscription product? I would hope anyone on here could certainly do that, but I figured I'd show you how easy it is. And again, if you're not violating any pricing rules, you'll see the quote status is auto approved. This quote can actually be added directly to a deal room. It can be exported to PDF. We have embedded e-signature and checkout flow as well. So if you were a net new seller selling a basic SaaS product, you would come in, you'd hit create quote, you would go find your product, it's on there, and you could send it to the customer with under 10 clicks. Now we get into some more complexity, as the RevOps geeks of this call in the world know. So things like ramp deals and how are we structuring more complicated subscription elements? We have multiple ways to do it, but one concept we have is a subscription builder. So this was always a huge pain point. How are we going to have that ramp, whether it's a pricing ramp, a quantity ramp? In Vendori, you can set this to be a 5-year deal, a 5-month deal. You set the start date to be whatever you want. The most common scenario is probably a 3-year deal, and you simply come in, you edit the quantity here. Vendori is going to do all of the math for you, and depending on how you're talking to your customer, you can enter in a discount, a net amount per year, or an uplift between periods. Vendori is doing all of that goal seek math for you. So a very easy way to structure your multi-period ramp deals. Once those are done and transacted, you'll see them reflected in the Vendori subscription ledger. So this is an example of one of these ramp deals I built just ahead of the call here. So we make it very easy for reps both to transact and structure these deals, but also to do the type of midterm amendments that they need, which I think gets into the complexity that kind of a new age CPQ is really focused on. I'll pause for a second. Adam, Gabi, Brad, I know I'm showing a lot here, kind of ripping through. I should clarify, by the way, this screen you'll see is a bit of a dummy screen. This isn't our demo environment, so this is all going to get touched up in the next couple of weeks, but we can do some midterm amendments and stuff, really see the functionality, but that's just wanted to show you how we're looking at that account in totality. Adam, I think you might be on mute.
I swear one day I'll learn how to unmute myself. Handful of very tactical questions. The customer contact section, how how is that pulling from Salesforce? Is that based on the contact role on the opportunity, or do you identify it prior to creating this quote? What's the, like, where is it, which record in Salesforce is it pulling my contact
It
info
is
from?
pulling from the account object in Salesforce. So this field here is pulling from the account object. This field is pulling from the contacts on the opportunity. But again, if you need to overwrite those on the quote or add anything, you can update them on the quote without pushing it back to the CRM. If
Oh,
that's
okay.
needed.
So based on whatever contacts are associated with the op, that's how you're getting the names down at the bottom.
Oh, I keep doing this here. Looks like I need to hit share. Exactly. So on the account, this is where I put in the information for that account. We can do separate bill twos and ship twos. We can actually do multi-ship to as well. And then on that opportunity, so this is the demo op. This is where you'll see actually that quote we just made has already been pushed back. And I'd added you in here as a contact role.
Okay. Yep. That's what I was after. And then all of the products that you select in the actual Vendori quote builder, where are those pulling from? I assume those are pulling from Salesforce price book entries, or like what's the mapping there?
Great question. So we are actually the source of truth for products. So all products and pricing are managed here in Vendori. The minute you create a product in Vendori, so I just created this sample SaaS product as an example, and I am doing this again, aren't I? Here we go. The minute you create that product in Vendori, what it's going to do is it is going to push that into Salesforce. It actually creates it as a product with a $0 price book entry. So what that allows us to do is it does pass over the product, and so we get that linkage in the system, but we are not bound by the limitations in Salesforce of how they structure products. So as an example here, when I come into the pricing model for this product, it's much easier for us on the Vendori side to change things like pricing types than it is on the Salesforce side. So again, we're source of truth for products, for price books, and we're syncing those back to the CRM so you get continuous reporting.
So any like discounting analysis by line items or anything like that would need to be done out of Vendori. Any sort of Vendori reporting, you need to do some sort of expert to say, here's my list price, and these are all the examples that I actually sold it at.
Maybe I'm not entirely sure of the question because we are passing the quote and the quote product back. So we are running. So for example, if I were to down into this quote product, you'll see all the discount analytics, gross margin analytics. This is all for that. And I'm not doing it here, am I? This is all for this one page. This is the one product you're looking at, Adam, and it's the line item record on the quote in Salesforce.
Great. So we would just do reporting off of the quote product object for anything like that. Okay.
Exactly. So we're pushing all of the data back. We're pushing it in, but technically it's coming in. It's not running the pricing calculations in Salesforce. It runs them in Vendori, but it pushes all of that data into Salesforce.
That's what I was after. Sweet.
Do you have a HubSpot instance connected to your demo environment that you could show us?
I do. I can pull one up. They are. Let's see. Would you like?
I think because it stands out. It stands out to me, obviously, that you integrate with both Salesforce and HubSpot. And again, going back to kind of the way that we've accepted things for so long, it was Salesforce or it was the native HubSpot pricing tool. So I would love to see how you guys have made that reciprocal between both of them.
Absolutely. So I'm going to pull it up here. I'm just opening HubSpot. But while I do that, I will just tell you. So we have managed packages for both HubSpot and Salesforce. So it's a one-click integration. We have fully open API structure as well, so we can integrate with any downstream tool, but particularly the core CRMs. We are, just let me open up HubSpot here. It's a hyperlink that installs all the fields and the pre-configured integrations.
Awesome.
Let me just see if it's up here. Give me just 1 second. Yeah.
Is one a better fit? I know you're not supposed to pick a favorite child, but
You can totally pick a favorite child.
Yeah, stay away from this one. Personally, we don't care. We always have said we're platform agnostic. We're passing all of the data regardless of what you live in. It really depends on the company. I mean, we're on HubSpot, but we use Salesforce a lot for demos. We have customers on both. It does not make a difference to us. Okay. All right. I think I've got it here.
Ask another meaty question while you're pulling that up. Where do you you mentioned, Open API can integrate with anything downstream. Where do you guys typically see yourselves sitting in the data flow from quote to invoicing motion and with the finance team? Are you like, do you typically see, great, we're going to do the back and forth with CRM and then let the CRM sync to an ERP, whether it's NetSuite or whatever else? Or do you guys find that a lot of customers will go do the quote building and the subscription management piece, kind of, let the salesperson do their job, do the discounting approvals, et cetera, and then you guys as Vendori are then pushing closed won information or like the subscription information into a NetSuite?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I wish there was one answer. If we found out anything, it's that everyone does it differently. So we have some customers who have pre-configured integrations where they've hooked up to an ERP or invoicing solution largely through the order object in the CRM. And so where that's the case, we can slot in seamlessly and there's no extra integration work to be done because we're just feeding that order object with the clean Vendori data. We also have customers who are completely dispersed. So the data is going to the CRM and then it's going directly from Vendori into an ERP or invoicing system. So again, we kind of see a little bit of it all here. And just like our customers' product catalogs, the quote to cash systems is completely different for just about all of our customers.
So quick question on that too. I assume you're probably gonna do the same thing here if you could, where we do create quote. I noticed this in the previous one with Salesforce. Is it a modal that's coming over and overlaying within Salesforce, or are you actually moving over to your application to do a lot of the configuration?
A great question. So that's one of the reasons we didn't build in an iframe or in a modal within the platform. So one, we wanted to be platform agnostic, but two, there were technical limitations if we were to do that. So Brad, you'll see here, it's actually going to open a new tab in the Vendori side. But again, we get a lot of functionality and horsepower in our front end, things that we wouldn't be able to do if we built in a modal with inside the CRM.
I agree with you for what that's worth. You can find yourself being more limited in some of your functionality if you fully have to subscribe to that iframe. So I'm with you.
Brad, I think we've had one potential customer who said they were just set on an iframe, and if it was outside of the system, they didn't care. But out of the hundreds of calls that we've had, I think it's been one who really had a problem.
Yeah.
So Gabi, here's the HubSpot, and you simply click create quote and it kicks you over to Vendori, but exact same concept here.
Awesome.
So it's a different Vendori environment, where you can only integrate with one CRM at a time.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
But again, the data flow is the same. The experience is the same. You build a product in Vendori, it automatically creates it in HubSpot. So you're not managing multiple sources of truth. And again, everything flows through pretty seamlessly.
I have a couple of clients with multiple brands set up in HubSpot where we manage their brands separately. And of course, they're sending quotes from each individual brand. How are you guys managing that? Do you support that yet?
So when you're saying brand, are we talking different price books, or you mean like the paper has to be different? They might want a different logo up here.
Yeah, different logo. That top left component there would be brand dependent.
Exactly. So we can have as many quote templates as you want, and we can set those to trigger based on any attribute. So again, if
Excellent. Okay. Yeah.
sales rep
Cool.
could pick, or it could automatically pick depending on the button that was clicked or attribute on the CRM, something like that.
Very cool. Okay. Thank you. I have questions, guys. When I start asking questions, I'm not going to stop asking questions.
Please,
So,
well, I'm going to reopen Salesforce here
okay.
so we can keep going, but please keep them coming.
Okay. So your website says that you could be like fully configured and live within 2 weeks. And then I think one of the case studies mentions actually going live within 48 hours. So like what is a 48-hour, like what's configured in 48 hours versus what takes longer? And then you kind of touched, this is a two-part question. I'm so sorry. So you mentioned like different types of complex pricing with usage-based models, multi-year contracts, things like that. Are those folks still live in 2 weeks, or is there is the 2-week timeline for simpler setups? I guess I'm asking what's happens in 48 hours, what happens in 2 weeks, and what goes beyond that?
Yeah, great question. So because we don't do traditional implementations where we're effectively just handing off a big package of software to consultants to bill time and materials, the only thing that really holds us up is if the customer needs something custom built. So I'll give you an example. We're working with a customer right now. It's a very complex implementation. They sell municipal services. So let's just, they're selling Coke and Pepsi to prisons or something. We'll use that as the example. but the conversation is actually with the state of New York. So they are talking to the state of New York. They're quoting each individual prison. They're selling them Coke and Pepsi, but the quote has to show effectively a group for each prison, because each prison has its own pricing that's determined by attributes for that prison. So the price of the Coke is the number of prisoners in that prison. Well, when you start adding up 50, 100 different prison locations around the state, and you think about the complexity of that, where you're talking to New York, they're effectively the bill to entity. You need to transact with them, but you're running all of this sub pricing that's rolling up into a broader, quote or order form. And then post transaction, all of those individual prisons have to be able to do their midterm amendments. So their expansions, their extensions at the prison level that also have to roll up. And the state of New York always needs to know the roll up of all of this. So you really get into that type of complexity. As far as the products go, though, Gabby, like moving from consumption to subscription, that's just a drop down for us. So the only time we see anything other than the 48 hours would typically be we can load in 200 products, get you integrated with Salesforce or HubSpot in under 48 hours. If you have 5 years of subscription data that we want to load in, and I know we did look at it, some of the account 360 to pull in all the historical data for amendments and things. Depending on the state of our customer subscription data, that might add a little bit of time. Again, for us, it's a simple upload. Outside of that, if there's nothing custom that's needed, we're talking a couple days. That said, everyone has something that's custom. They come in and they say, we're really simple. We're a SaaS business. It's user-based. It's 5 products. We say, great. You get to the first meeting. They say, but we forgot to tell you that one product has to be divided by pi. We can only sell it on Tuesdays. And you have to register for tax in Albania. We need to pull that in from Avalar or something like that. So that's really where they pull out. And again, we build that on our side so that our platform is constantly getting more expansive as opposed to just shipping it off and delivering a single tenant point in time solutions.
Thank you.
Ethan,
Brad's
thoughts on
either laughing in excitement or he's laughing at me because he knows how complex and nuanced this can be.
little bit of both, not gonna lie. And I'll start just by saying I hear a lot of demos all during the day. I've actually heard the Coke versus Pepsi one. Never have I heard prisons overlapped on top of a Coke versus Pepsi demo. So kudos to you on creativity. Quite a unique
Racking
spin
up
on
the
that.
bonus points here, that's for sure.
Yeah. No, you know what really actually made me think of, and this is going to segue more into like target audience, who you're trying to sell to, and what is that sweet spot for it. Taking a ton of steps back to the old steel brick CPQ world of things. They will in fact admit this. That product in its original sense was built more for like manufactured goods or like physical like goods to sell. I think the whole like example they used in all the testing was like, you're buying 50 MacBook Pros. Buy 50, that means you're going to get a 10% block discount, and you're also going to go ahead and attach all the chargers and keyboards and mouse. So it was originally built for that. Obviously, that example with the Pepsi and Coke to the prisons is kind of in line to a certain degree with that. Curious, when you think of your just top customers, are they B2B SaaS folks? Are they manufactured good folks? Does it matter? Yeah, curious what you think about that.
No, it's a great question. So I think our customer base today, again, we don't do custom manufacturing or fabrication because those are largely kind of CAD based. We rely on a pre-configured, predefined SKU catalog. Our customers today are primarily in B2B tech. So those are people typically have some complexity. If you have 3 products and they're all per user per year and you're a startup, I tell people use Stripe. You really don't need Vendori. It's once you either start running into challenges of things we haven't touched yet in Vendory, but approvals. So when you get to quote volume or quote velocity, looking at things like, I think to your point, Brad, right? It might be configurable products, right? All the customization that's required with how we put different products together. Those types of program discounts, pricing rules. Again, we have this built in here where I might have the rule turned off here, but all of our rules, our workflows, and everything else is all managed with our no-code pricing engine. So if you wanted to build that customization you just talked about, Brad, where this certain configuration or this certain deal length results in a certain discount, you can do all of that in Vendory without writing any code. Right? As these products sold on this day with this gross margin, apply a 10% discount or send it to Brad for approval.
Another like kind of more ecosystem type question like that. And then I know we'll get into more like technical pieces of it. One thing that I found, this was years ago, when we were actually going between different CPQ products. Uh, I will leave the products names out of it to keep us all in a safe space. But one of the customers that we were working with actually had really interesting feedback that I'd never thought about. So I'm curious if you've received this or if it's an objection you've had to handle or not. Um, it had a little bit less to do with the quote creation. It had actually a little bit more to do with the e-signature platform that we were sending out with. And again, we won't mention any names, but I remember one of our larger enterprise clients saying, like, wait, is this like a real document? Like, is this a real quote? Is this really something that I'm going to sign? I've never heard of insert e-signature name here and insert other CPQ product here. This doesn't feel legally binding. Can you just PDF this and send it via doc? So there's industries like that that are very kind of old school in that manner. They're like, I only trust these certain logos. Curious from the newer side of things if that's something you've run into yet, or that's a displace.
It has. So we are definitely working with some customers in those more traditional industries. We let them export directly to PDF. So another benefit of seeing the quote is it's not like the old, hold your breath and hope whatever you put on the quote shows up on the PDF. So we do allow people to export to PDF and sign that way. Or we have this concept of our digital deal rooms. And so what this does, it allows you to share in sort of a living, breathing environment, multiple quotes. So again, you have a lot of flexibility here. You can do things like chat back and forth with customers, add files or collateral as you need to. Your end customers can invite people. So I remember the first time we'd actually pushed this into our production environment, I was using it for a deal that we were closing. I'd invited our RevOps contact there, and all of a sudden I was being tagged and asked questions by finance and legal. And everyone kind of came together organically without us having to invite or prompt anyone to use it. And then I think to your last point, Brad, when we look at our transaction flow, so from that deal room, an end customer can come in, they can click the transact button, they can go through a fully customizable click through T's and C's if you have those and you want those as part of the process. And it also takes you directly into an embedded e-signature as well. So for customers that are okay with it, we can capture it directly in the platform, make it really seamless. If you need the old wet signature, you have to dump it through DocuSign. We let you PDF it as well, and handle it both ways.
Good deal. As the guy married to an attorney who only does like wet signature things like that, what if she were to see this sort of thing, she'd be like, I don't trust this. Somebody give me a blue or black ink and I
Yeah,
will sign it. But that's all I'll sign it in. So I can
we try
appreciate
to
that.
keep them happy too. So we can even put it in an envelope and put a stamp on it if that's going to make the difference.
There you go.
I have like one or two, hopefully very quick questions, and I think we can jump to pricing and scoring with the 10 minutes remaining. On the deal room piece, and then you just showed like the T's and C's, the click through T's and C's component. Can you can any information from that flow be pushed back into either CRM or a data warehouse? And where I'm going with this is for things like sales motions that are verging on an online buy flow, where there's some sort of blocker to say, hey, once they accept the T's and C's, then we want to allow a deal to move to close one or kick off a provisioning process, like the moment that checkbox is marked as true. Is that a possible business motion to integrate with, like, from this screen?
That's interesting. So, right, I have to think, I couldn't imagine a technical reason we couldn't trigger a webhook based on a selection in the T's and C's for now, because it's so contained that you'd click here, you hit continue, and the next thing is the e-signature. We probably could do that. What we're actually working on, Adam, it'll be coming out in early January, is another screen that allows you to collect information, billing information, purchase order information, other things that would need to go back to the CRM or the quote records.
Okay. Yeah, I'm thinking especially on like something like an upsell motion, and this kind of bleeds into my next question, which is really like basically what sort of business or contracting scenarios can you not support? But before I actually ask that, the example with the T's and C's thing is like, if you have some sort of off cycle upgrade or renewal where you go, hey, we don't actually need a true signature, we just maybe need like the click through T's and C's to accept the upgrade or the upsell or something. But in order to provision that additional SKU in the back end of my product, I just need some sort of flag to say customer has accepted, go ahead and kick off a provisioning process.
So that's interesting. I have not had anyone ask about that concept yet. Typically, even for midterm amendments, they want that signature on the quote. We had addressed that concept somewhat with how we think through orders. And so one thing we've learned dealing with CPQ, this is not just get a page and make it price times quantity. As soon as you start getting into subscriptions, you need to think about subscription management. So then you have quoted data, ordered data, fulfilled data, entitled data, renewed data. It creates this whole kind of ecosystem. And so as we look into things like fulfillment dates, we can trigger things to your point, whether it's based on a click through, something like that. We could absolutely wire that up. Hasn't come up yet today, but no reason we could.
My turn. All right. um, h- how much of this overlaps with or covers subscription management? So what does it look like if you do have a subscription-based process for things like renewals, upsells, co-terming, things like that? Is that something we still need to rely on another tool to manage, or is that covered in here?
No, it's a great question. So we fully automate that. We are the source of truth for subscription.
Excellent. Okay.
And specifically to answer your question, if you transact a subscription deal here, we have settings that will automatically even create a renewal opportunity in the CRM alongside the quote if you want it. And we
love
will
it.
aggregate in the future everything with the same end date. So if you do a midterm expansion, it will update that renewal quote in the future. So your customer is not getting multiple invoices, multiple renewal quotes. As far as co-terming and proration, again, all part of our platform. So again, this screen is being updated, but just functionally here, this was a deal I transacted just before the call. It goes from June to June. And we can see here they have, I believe it's 100 users in this deal. So if I were to come in and do a midterm expansion of this product, you'll see I can type in 30 here. Now you'll notice that the pricing is off because it automatically co-termed this with the subscription that I was expanding. If I add this type into this line item, it shows up as expansion. So this gets into a lot of the data that's going back into Salesforce. We're tracking net new, expansion, extension. If that sales rep comes in and let's say they're talking to the customer and the customer says, you know what, June 30th isn't good enough. I want to kick this out to 30th. Vendori will actually identify that this is an extension and an expansion, and it's going to create the second line, which you see is now an extension for the full 130, the 100 you had originally plus the 30 expansion. So it's a constant, and when you think about CPQ, this is really the challenge. Everything is sort of wrappers on wrappers on wrappers, and you get into packages and bundles and configurations and subscriptions, and they're being aggregated and broken apart at various steps in the process. Different start dates might generate different orders, but then they have to be reassembled so you get your nice clean account 360 that comes through at the end. So that's really the challenge with what we've built. We're not engineering geniuses. We have an outstanding engineering team, but this is not some technology no one's seen before. It's just a very nuanced, complicated business process
Yeah.
that people might see from one angle, but not from all of them. And that's where you get the frustration of you might get a demo that can do a lot of this very well, but if you're a sales rep and it's not intuitive to you, it doesn't help them at all. And they're going to be screaming and throwing their laptops out the window. So that's kind of the blend that we're trying to straddle.
No, I love it. If I had $1 for the number of flows that I've built to do all of those things, I could pay this quote here on the screen. But that kind of takes me to my next question, and I promise it'll be my final question before we move into pricing. If I'm already using CPQ, or if I already have a homegrown process in Salesforce, or I'm using a spreadsheet, or I'm using something else, what does it look like to migrate that? Because if I do have existing subscriptions and things like that, what does that look like in terms of, we talked about implementation onboarding, but also just that migration into Vendori?
It's a great question. So products and pricing is usually very simple for us, and we can do bulk uploads and downloads, and that's usually held in a centralized place. So that's very quick. Subscriptions, honestly, it depends on the customer. So for us, it's a basic sheet. I mean, it's an upload. We have customers who say, no problem, send it back in an hour. We have some who've taken 2 months to try to aggregate all the data from their systems. So it really depends, but the subscriptions, and again, if you want any assets or past one-time purchases where you can do reorder, buy again, we handle that as well. So it really depends actually less on us and more on how quickly our customers can get that information into the template. But it's not a particularly laborious or complicated process or template once we have it.
That's always been a tricky part with any sort of these systems like this, especially financially related. I tell people all the time, there's a big difference between buying something like Vendori and we'll pick on like SalesLoft being here in Atlanta. SalesLoft, oddly enough, like you could get to like 80% of implementation and be kind of confident enough to like roll it out to your end users and you stub your toe here or there on a merge field or like one errant email or something like that. you don't really get that luxury in a finance perspective. Like you have to do a full 100% implementation, and even 98% done shows you risk and shows you places that you should have that other 2% done. So I'm glad Gabby asked that from like a implementation perspective and migration of quotes, because it can be a ton if especially if you have a couple hundred customers and you've been around for 5 years. There's still a lot of data behind that to support the migration.
Yeah, and I think so. Technically, that is probably the most challenging part. But for us, again, another reason we talk about configuration and not implementation, we've actually found that the first discovery sessions are the most critical and determine whether or not we're going to have a successful partnership. And they're not technical. It's not about send me your data or make sure you get us your subscriptions. They tend to revolve, Adam, I'm guessing, around the stuff that you guys are doing at Domestique. So their pricing, their packaging. There are multiple ways to do just about everything in Vendori, and there's a way that you want it done. And if you don't understand the downstream implications of that, that's where people have bad experiences. They think they know what they want. They think they want it a certain way. Now, at least in Vendori, it's easy to update that, and you don't have to call in new consultants to reconfigure it. But I can't stress how important those early sessions are for our customers of really trying to understand what they're trying to get done. And then it's our job to translate that and help them see that in Vendori.
Okay, we got a few minutes left. Let's talk pricing. So the website says starting at $85 a user. Is that starting at 85 and goes down if you have a lot of users, or is that starting at 85 and goes up if you need additional features?
It's the former, but I feel like in a public forum, I should be saying the latter, maybe. As for my last job before Vendori, I ran the global pricing team at Citrix. We sat over about $3 billion a year in revenue, so it was a large enterprise company. We sold about 6 core things. We had 16,600 SKUs. Now, a lot of that was legacy from, past life and having on-prem entitlements. So you had to make a new SKU for each duration or different software or hardware configurations. So the limitations of the tool, if you don't have that flexibility, cause a lot of pain downstream. But what it really taught me is complex pricing is a problem. It's a problem for the customer. It's a problem to manage internally. We vowed that when we set out to do Vendori, which is largely a pricing focused app, we were not going to make it complicated. So we don't have 4 different tiers of users. I think the craziest one I've seen was someone in our space who was actually charging a percentage of the quote, like the deal value is how they got paid. And so again, we tried to keep it as simple as possible, and 85 is the starting point, and then it tends to go down from there as we hit higher tiers.
So asked a different way, there are no additional features that are a la carte. Is it like the 85 is the price, no ifs, ands, or buts, or are there additional, like are there either setup costs or any sort of like custom development charges that may come into play?
So as of today, we're not, and we have not had to do any custom development. Like I said, we don't charge for implementation. The way we see it is if it's something that goes in the platform that will allow us to grow the platform, there's value added to us as well. We haven't come across this yet, with one exception. It was a company that did, they needed quoting for school bus routing. And the price calculation was the miles of the route divided by the 2 zip codes, the time of the day. We won't do something like that. So that's where Vendori falls short. If you have that level of specificity, you kind of do need the custom coding and the time and materials. But I think that's the one example of something we haven't been able to build in as part of our included configuration process.
Gabi, questions?
No, I'm doing my best. I'm doing my best to just tamp them down. How are you feeling about scoring, Brad? You ready?
I'm getting in there now. I realized I didn't have edit access to it. So
Okay.
I'm getting into it now.
Do you want to start, Adam?
Sure. So we score across a handful of categories. Ethan, I think, was in the send ed, but product market fit, usability, general need, integrations, pricing, and then the open-ended bonus points. Product market fit, with a max of 5 points in any given category. With a for product market fit, I gave a 5. I think there is still room in the marketplace and very much a need for really good CPQ tools, both to displace kind of the legacy players like the aforementioned Steelbrick and other things along those lines, but also just the drag and drop in this kind of blend bleeding into usability. The drag and drop quote editor is like that. I mean, that alone is worth the $85 to me. That's huge. I think it's a very clean editor, and from the relatively brief demo, like looks pretty intuitive. There was nothing that you were clicking on where I was like, wait, hold on, I need you to do that again because I couldn't follow it. So product market fit 5, usability I gave a 4, And so only because we didn't get into like the deal rooms or deep into the pricing configuration and stuff like that. So I'm just hedging against myself because I didn't get to see it all. But if it's like the rest of it, then I think it would be a 5. Oh, I gave a 4 there. One of our kind of bars is like, can you do this with Salesforce out of the box? You can, kind of. Gabi's point, you will have to build lots of flows. They will have to be very robust. The configurability long term is kind of a pain in the ass, and they don't always scale well, but like you can. So I gave a 4 instead of a 5 there. Integrations 5, super clean with Salesforce and HubSpot. I can't think of any other major CRMs that wouldn't work, but if you say you can integrate anywhere else too, then no issues there, especially on the ERP side. Pricing, I'm gonna go 4 there. I think that's just the single pricing tier, immense value. Actually, I really can't think why I wouldn't go 5, but again, kind of hedging in case somebody comes along and does everything just as well and only charges 75. And then bonus points, I gave 2 because the overlap with Citrix, and then I was there many moons ago, as we discussed the other day, and then general cool guy in the Southeast. So good times.
Thank you.
For a score of 24 out of a possible 25 and a verdict, I will give it a truth. I think Vendori is the real deal.
Yeah, I'm gonna keep it super. I know we're like pressed for time, so I'm gonna keep it super straightforward. I almost entirely agree with everything that Adam said, and I also vote truth. The one thing that I think we marked differently was the need, and it's simply just because of what Adam said, where we have all been kind of hobbling along with our own version of this. And because people think of it as such a painful process because of the experience that they've had in the past, I think it is challenging to win them over and to get them to take on a new implementation. So I do think the way that you're positioning yourself and the ease of getting it set up is really what people need to hear the most of, because like I said, I think everybody's a little apprehensive about taking on a new CPQ because of how painful it can be. And I will say, for bonus points, of course, I mentioned your CTO, Will Price, is a former teammate of mine. I think that your presentation was really slick, and I really like the fact that you do actually integrate with both Salesforce and HubSpot, and it seems like it's a very reciprocal experience. Like I said, there's parity between both of those, so I think that those are my 3 bonus points. So other than what Adam said, I echo all of that, but just to add that on.
Yeah, and I'll jump in real fast and just kind of warp speed through a couple of mine too. TLDR, almost the exact same score as Gabi and Adam, without cheating or without trying to borrow their scores. I think from the jump we talked about product market fit, right? This is going to be something that I see as sturdy and stable. I think it is more deterministic than inference based. I think you're always going to have a need for this in the financial world. That world's going to keep evolving. I'll jump onto the pricing side of things. We didn't really get this deep, so it might be there, and we just didn't get to discuss it. But coming from a business like Zapier, where we are usage based, there's a lot of components there. I, as we all kind of keep skating toward that proverbial puck of usage based pricing, we see OpenAI, we see Anthropic doing this all day long with their credit. I think everybody's starting to put that hat on. How do I do this? How do I layer that into along with a subscription fee, along with a user fee? So, that might be something y'all might be thinking about or already doing. We probably didn't get to discuss it. And last but not least, we talked about integrations, need, and usability. But man, bonus points coming from Atlanta. And it's also the holidays. How do I not give a few extra bonus points just during the holidays? Here we are.
Take
But no,
whatever we can get.
there you go. No, you earned and received everything. I'd say fairly, and I'm bullish on this space just in the fact that, like I said, it's not going anywhere. Everybody has tried to solve this in a myriad of different ways, and I don't think that's a right or a wrong thing. Just the fact that it shows that this is needed in a lot of different places. I think it's going to continue to grow and expand. So kudos to you and the team.
And I'm going to say something that I've literally never said before. I'm really looking forward to implementing this for my clients. I I'm I've been there many times. I've done all of the Panda Docs, and I've done it all. So I'm looking forward to a new experience with this. And I can't wait to see it in action.
Yeah, definitely want to get my hands on it at some point too. So if you have a demo instance you can throw our way, Ethan, that would be a couple extra bonus points. We can up the score retroactively.
We'll get you set up.
Sweet. Well, thanks for taking the time. I know you have to jump to a real demo, I believe. Brad Smith, thanks as always for joining. Gabi,
Yeah, thanks,
I'll
Brad.
see you later.
Yeah. See you guys. Happy
Back to
holidays.
Atlanta. It was great to meet
You got it. See you
Adam and
guys.
Gabi. Thank you for the time. Really appreciate
Absolutely.
the platform, and we'll keep in touch. We'll talk soon.
Sounds
Thank
good.
you so much.
Yeah. See ya.
Bye.